Hey y'all, and welcome back to Moose Reads Good, a podcast where both the intro and the outro are unscripted, and I have no idea what I'm doing. It's been a while since I have put out an episode, and part of that is because I just did not feel like it. The other part is I've been working on my other podcast. Another podcast, you ask yourself as you sit there with your earbuds in your ears and listening to me spout on and on about random tangents? Well, yes, I have another podcast. It's called Small Town Absurd, takes place in rural Oklahoma in the 1980s, and it's about at least 3 30-year-old dumbasses and one 20-something-year-old sorta dumbass who get into all sorts of country time hijinks, and also there's a lot of murder and gore and just all sorts of fun stuff. So if you ever feel like you want to go listen to it, you can find it anywhere on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, just like I said, anywhere. I mean, those are the 3 big ones, but you know what I mean. Anyway, it's called Small Town Absurd. It is amazing, even if I do say so myself. But that's not what we're here for today, is it? No, what we're here for today is the 5th chapter of Starlight by Sacrifice Them to the Squid. Now, if you don't remember, Sacrifice Them to the Squid is an amazing author. You should definitely go check her out on archiveofourown.org or on Tumblr. Anyway, I am ready, I am able, and I am covered in superglue. So, let's get to it. Starlight, Chapter 5 by Sacrifice Them to the Squid. Eventually, Feely yawns and stretches, immediately leaning toward his brother. He took a little broth, Tariel says. If he wakes again, have him drink as much as he can. He needs his strength. Did he speak? He asked about you. He nods. How is he? Feverish, but out of danger. She doesn't have any idea how long it will take. She just knows that the blackness has been burned away, and that's enough. We are hardy folk, Feely says, as if in agreement, but his face is still pinched with residual fear. How did this happen? Was it poison? Perhaps. Morgul, in Sindarin, merely means black. The ugly swollen wound on Keely's leg, the fingers of darkness crawling up his thigh. She can't know if it was a noxious plant, some alchemical invention or malicious sorcery. Whatever darkness lay within, it is gone now. How? Feely presses. There's a note of command in his voice that she instinctively almost obeys. Feely is the heir, the future leader, imbued with strength and gravity made all the more intense by fear for his brother. I cannot explain. He frowns, deeply unsatisfied, but Keely makes a soft noise, stirring but not waking, and Feely immediately focuses on his brother. He will recover. He will. Feely reaches for the damp cloth and presses it to Keely's forehead. Are you here to take us back to Thranduil? He asks bluntly. I am not here for Thranduil. That makes him pause. Who are you here for then? It takes everything she has not to betray herself by glancing down at Keely's still form. The orcs. Feely spits a curse at the floor. Are they dead? Only those that were in this room. His knuckles go white against the deep blue of Keely's tunic. Less than a day behind us. More, she says. Your kin took a boat. The orcs will walk. Small comfort. He touches Keely's forehead with the back of his hand, grimacing at the heat. How long until he can travel? You would know better than I. What was it Owen asked for? Kingsfoil? He glances at the kitchen. Is there none left? There was little to begin with. His wound took priority. Well, he's alive at least. Feely looks up at her. Without you, he'd be dead. Even I can see that. Fate allowed me to intervene. That's all. There's a moment of silence. I knew something was wrong, he finally says, so hushed, even her elven ears almost can't hear it. He takes up the cloth and presses it again to his brother's forehead. He was getting worse. We both knew it. He was scared. I was scared. In the candlelight, his eyes are haunted. I would have carried him up that mountain if Thorn had let me, he says fiercely. He would have died. After a long, choking moment, he collects himself. He's my brother, Tariel. Whatever mistrust exists between our kin, I owe you. The use of her name startles her, and she can only blink, the silence becoming awkward. Do you have family? He asks. Only what's left in the ashes, she almost says, and checks herself. It's not for me to ask, he finally says. Forgive me. It's nothing. She assures him automatically, but there's a hard lump in her throat. She could never love Keeley even a fraction as much as his brother does, and the magnitude of the prince's devotion is humbling. Tariel sits down on the far wall, tucking herself up into a meditative position, her back against the corner. She closes her eyes, but sleep eludes her. She hears Keeley wake, sounding small and fretful, and Feely's rumbling, reassuring response. Through half-lidded eyes, she watches the brothers, the way Feely is impossibly gentle with his huge, muscular hands. There's a pause in the conversation, a negotiation in low tones, and then Feely swings Keely's arm across his shoulders and helps him upright. The journey down the stairs is absolutely out of the question, so a bucket is provided, Keely leaning against his brother's neck. More muffled conversation, bantering tones amid the sound of falling water. Then, the drop back to the makeshift bed that is more a swoon than a controlled descent. There's another negotiation, Feely's voice firm and insistent, and then he's tucking Keely back up against his shoulder, stabilizing the cup as the broth is drunk. Finally, Feely fusses, adding another blanket. What she sees most is how seamless they are together. They are each an extension of the other's body. There's no embarrassment, no resistance, save for whatever dwarvish pigheadedness that Keely can summon, and even that Feely accepts with fond tolerance. What feels like mere moments later, a sound like rolling thunder builds in the distance and she starts awake. She must have truly slept, because at some point, someone dropped a blanket over her and for half a breath she thinks she's wrapped in spider silk. She jumps to her feet, stumbling a little, hands on her knives, until her head sorts out the threat. It's the dragon, the boy, Bane, says in a fearful hush, peering out the door. Could be a storm, Owen says, lifting his ear trumpet to the night. The clouds have drawn in, smothering what light the moon had given. Feely glances at Tariel, a terse invitation for commentary. What do you think? She joins him at the threshold, taking a deep breath of the icy air to steady herself. The fog bank is impenetrable. Visibility fades past the nearest buildings. I cannot tell. Behind them, there's a rustle of blankets and the gentle thunk of a wayward walnut hitting the floor. Feely is there immediately, bracing Keely as he tries to sit up. Did someone say dragon? Hush, Tariel says, more severe than she'd like. You'll wake the girls. Keely blinks and squints, swaying in place. Dragon. It could be anything, Feely says firmly. Do not coddle me, Keely says hoarsely. I know what they face. You... Easy, lad. This isn't on you. Owen comes over and puts a hand on Keely's forehead. Bless me, the fever's finally broken. I feel hungry. Try a bite to eat. That will set you right. Between the three of them, the dwarves get Keely upright and ensconced in a chair amid a thick goat fleece hide. More broth is presented, and when it is consumed, another bowl, this time with generous chunks of trout and carrot. Tariel hovers on the edge of the room, one eye on the door and the other on the scene by the fire. Where is Legolas? Part of her assumed he returned with news, but it's been hours. He'd told her she couldn't take 30 orcs on her own, but even now that the pack's been cleaved to half its size, it would be foolhardy for one elf alone. Has she killed him? Has she traded the life of one prince for another? No. Legolas is smart. He'll kill what he can from a distance, and when he can't make a kill, he'll sit and observe. Tariel is the impulsive one, the one who runs off despite her king without plan or supplies. She glances over at Keely. Over the bowl tilted to his mouth, his eyes meet hers, and the softness in their brown depths brings warmth and confusion to her chest. Has she eaten? He hears him ask Feely, who frowns. Within short minutes, she's seated with a bowl of her own and a hunk of crusty bread. The food is simple but hearty, and she doesn't realize how famished she is until her spoon hits the bottom of the bowl. Elves are known for their endurance. She's never let herself get this strained before, and she wonders if the healing spell is the cause. Closing small wounds is one thing. Pulling malevolent blackness from a wound is entirely another. She hopes she never has to do it again. She's not sure she could. When he's done, Keeley tries valiantly to stay awake, but ends up nodding off in his chair. Feely and Owen pull up stools nearby to have a whispered conference. Bane joins his sisters in their nest of blankets, and Beaufort snores in the corner, as he has since the minute Keeley stopped screaming. Tariel should sleep too. Now that she has a belly full of food, her body is insistent on rest, but she can't make herself lie back down. Instead, she slips outside, settling herself on the porch in restless watch. The fog shifts and moves in waves. Again, a roll of thunder curls across the lake, shaking dust off the rafters in its wake. She jumps to her feet, peering into the darkness. This time, she knows without a doubt it's the roar of a furious dragon. Thranduil has pontificated on many occasions the foul and violent nature of dragons, a favorite tirade second only to the one on the greed and deception of the dwarves. She was first his ward, then his soldier, and now the captain of his guard, and she knows her king's whims and quarrels as well as anyone could. She's listened to his dramatic accounts of fighting the worms of the north, and for the first time in her life, she finds herself grateful for his obsession. But the gratitude lasts less than a breath. The dragon is suddenly overhead, his shadow sweeping over her like a cloak. In the waterways, panic swells, parents crying for children as they hastily collect whatever will fit in their boats. This entire town is about to be engulfed in dragonfire. "We have no time," she announces, ducking back into the room, her heart hammering in her mouth. She grabs the girls' coats. "We must leave." Feely bodily lifts Keeley from his chair. His brother sputters a little at being woken so abruptly, trying to shake him off. "I'm fine. I can walk." "We're not leaving," Bane exclaims. "Not without our father." "If you stay here, your sisters will die," Tariel snaps, bundling Tilda in her coat. "Is that what your father would want?" As they scramble downstairs to the boat, the dragon circles again, dropping out of sight behind the ridge lines of the nearest houses. She's suddenly terrified they won't get out in time. The waterways are barely wide enough for two boats to pass each other, and now everyone is flooding out of their homes. "Quickly now!" "Keeley," Feely says, "come on!" Keeley is limping badly, but he's on his feet and collapses into the boat just as Beaufort and Feely push off. The dragon roars, passing overhead so closely the boat shudders from the sound. What does she know about dragons? She needs to breathe. She's heard all of Thranduil's stories, but now that the beast is overhead, everything seems puerile. Dragon hide is all but impossible to pierce. Dragons are greedy. She doesn't have another moment to think of what dragons are, because suddenly there's a wild infernal roar, and the leaning apothecary behind them explodes in splinters and flame, all the air rushing away in its wake. Her bow is useless. Abruptly, a huge barge materializes out of smoke, and no amount of skill can prevent collision. As the bargemen yell in indignation, the little boat creaks and leans, the gunwale barely inches above the water. She pushes hard against the barge's slick sides, the others pushing with her. Down against the bottom, Keeley whimpers. They're going to die. They're going to burn to death or drown. She leans over the girls. Suddenly, she feels pressure on her legs. He's holding her steady as the boat lists. He's using his weight to counterbalance, and he's gripping her so tightly she's never fallen overboard. Their eyes meet in the flickering chaos, and the look he gives her burns hotter than flying cinders around them. Once the boat is stable, she makes herself exhale, hoping he can't feel her shaking. She can swim well, but the frigid water and its black depths yawn beneath her, a darkness so penetrating it seems like the soul of Morgoth himself. Despite herself, she reaches down at the same moment Keeley reaches up, fingers tangling in the shadows. Release him from death. But there isn't a Thalos for this moment. All she can do is find a way through the smoke. Alright, that is Chapter 5 of Starlight by Sacrificethemtothesquid. Like I said, if you want to read more of her work, go on over to archiveofourown.org and just look her up. She'll be there in the first searches that you look for. If you want to do something nice for me in the podcast, I suggest going on over to whatever favorite podcatcher that you like to use and give us like a thumb up or a rating of some sort. I don't have any social medias because I don't really like social medias. But you don't have to if you don't want to. Really, either or. I just do this because I like doing it. Anyway, that's all I have for today, and I hope y'all have a good rest of the day, or a good evening, good morning, wherever you are at while you're listening to this. I hope it is good, and I will catch you next time.